Have you ever wondered why your heart shifts in ways you cannot explain, as if something deep inside you has been quietly rearranged by a hand you cannot see? That sudden sensitivity, that unexpected clarity, that strange pull away from what once felt familiar may not be random at all. It might be the earliest whisper that God is setting you apart, that He is anointing you for something greater than the season you are leaving behind. When God begins to work in the hidden places of a person's soul, the first sign is rarely loud. It starts with an inner movement, a subtle stirring that makes you question why your desires are changing, why your spirit feels heavier, and why certain things no longer fit who you are becoming. Many people ignore this shift, but those who are called cannot escape it. A changed heart is one of the clearest signals of divine direction, especially when it happens suddenly, unexpectedly, and without any logical explanation. This inner transformation is not the result of emotion. It is alignment. It is God pulling you out of patterns that were comfortable but not purposeful. When your heart starts detaching from old habits, old relationships, and old versions of yourself, it is not loss. It is preparation. You begin to feel a strange mixture of peace and discomfort, as if something in you knows that where you are is not where you will stay. And even if you cannot articulate it, your spirit recognizes that God is preparing you for a new anointing, a deeper calling, a direction that requires a heart purified, softened, and ready to carry something greater. If your heart has been shifting like this, it is not confusion. It is invitation. You are being shaped, stretched, and positioned for a season that demands a renewed inner life. Have you ever felt this? Has your heart ever changed without asking your permission, pulling you towards something you cannot yet name? Share your experience in the comments, because your journey may confirm someone else's. And before we continue, make sure to like this video and check whether you are already subscribed, because understanding these signs will help you recognize what God is doing inside you. What comes next will deepen this clarity even more as the transformation unfolding in your heart begins connecting to the greater purpose ahead. As your heart continues to shift in ways you cannot fully explain, something else begins to rise quietly within you, almost like a new layer of perception you never realized you carried. This awakening of spiritual sensitivity is one of the most profound signs that God is anointing you, because it changes how you feel, how you discern, and how you interpret what happens around you. You start noticing things that others overlook. You sense atmospheres differently. Conversations affect you at a deeper level. You become aware of what uplifts your spirit and what drains it. This sensitivity is not emotional fragility. It is spiritual refinement. God is sharpening your inner senses so you can recognize His voice, distinguish His guidance, and respond to His movements with clarity rather than confusion. What once felt normal now feels heavy, and what once felt distant now feels urgent, as if heaven is tugging gently but consistently at the edges of your awareness. This awakening often shows up in quiet ways. Moments that you would have ignored in the past suddenly touch you deeply. You feel conviction faster, you notice spiritual danger sooner, and you find yourself longing for peace more than entertainment, for truth more than noise, for alignment more than approval. People around you may not understand why certain environments no longer feel right, or why you have become more introspective, but this shift is not meant to be understood by everyone. It is meant to prepare you. When God begins to awaken your sensitivity, He is training you to hear Him above the distractions that once drowned out His whisper. The more your spirit awakens, the more you realize that the world feels louder, yet God feels closer. And as this inner awareness grows, so does your ability to discern what is from God and what is simply pulling you off course. You begin recognizing subtle spiritual currents, the kind that only those who are being set apart can perceive. You start feeling a gentle resistance inside when something is not aligned with your purpose, and a deep inner peace when something carries the fingerprints of God. This is how he prepares those he intends to use. He heightens their senses so they can walk into their calling with eyes open and heart steady. If you have been sensing this internal shift, this increased awareness, this deeper sensitivity, it is not accidental. It is the unfolding of a process that began the moment your heart started to change, a continuation of the transformation that is guiding you toward the next stage of your anointing. As your spiritual sensitivity grows, something even more unsettling begins to happen inside you. The things that once excited you, the people who once pulled you in, and the environments that once felt comfortable suddenly lose their appeal. It is not burnout, it is not mood, it is spiritual detachment. When God begins to anoint someone, he often starts by removing the influence of anything that no longer aligns with the identity he is shaping within them. You might wake up one day and wonder why certain desires feel empty, why certain conversations seem shallow, or why certain habits no longer match the person you feel yourself becoming. This is not confusion, it is refinement. God is disconnecting you from what fed your old self so you can grow into the version of you that his purpose requires. This shift can feel uncomfortable because it challenges your sense of familiarity. You may notice yourself withdrawing from patterns that once defined your daily life. The music you used to enjoy now feels heavy. The people you used to follow no longer inspire you. The goals you once chased seem strangely meaningless. You begin seeking depth, truth, purity, and direction instead of entertainment, distraction, or validation. This change is not something you forced. It is something your spirit accepted before your mind fully understood it. When God prepares someone for a higher calling, he does not begin by adding things. He begins by removing what cannot go with them. And sometimes the hardest part of this process is realizing how many parts of your old life were never meant to survive the new season. But there is something sacred about this loss of desire. It reveals that your heart is being rewired, redirected, and refined. The things that once attracted you represented an earlier chapter of your life. They matched a version of you that is fading as God calls you higher. You may feel a tension inside, a quiet battle between who you were and who you are becoming, but that tension is the very space where anointing grows. God is not just changing your habits, he is changing your appetite. He is giving you a hunger for his presence, a desire for clarity, and an instinct to walk away from anything that dilutes your purpose. And even if you cannot yet see the full picture, this inner shift marks the beginning of a deeper separation, one that prepares you to recognize the next stage of transformation that is already unfolding. As your heart detaches from what once defined you, you begin to feel a new and unfamiliar weight settling over your spirit. It is not sadness, though it can feel heavy. It is not fear, though it often makes you pause. It is a spiritual weight, a quiet but persistent pressure that pulls you away from the ordinary, away from the noise, away from the places where you once blended in without question. This weight is one of God's most intentional tools. He uses it to create distance between you and anything that no longer matches the calling forming inside you. When God prepares to anoint someone, he does not let them remain where everyone else stands. He separates them, not to isolate them, but to refine them, to extract from their life everything that dilutes their purpose or competes with his voice. This weight shows up in subtle ways. You may feel restless in environments that once thrilled you, as if your spirit is signaling that you have outgrown the atmosphere around you. Conversations that once entertained you now leave you uneasy. People you once admired no longer influence you the same way. Even the rhythm of your days begins to shift, because something deep within recognizes that the season you are stepping into requires a different level of presence, responsibility, and clarity. This is not a burden meant to break you. It is a divine filter meant to elevate you. God is lifting you out of the crowd without announcing it publicly. He is setting you apart long before others notice the transformation, because true anointing begins in the invisible spaces where no one is watching. And this weight, though mysterious, has a purpose that becomes clearer the longer you walk with it. It presses you away from distractions and toward alignment, away from noise and toward discernment, away from imitation and toward authenticity. You may not fully understand why certain doors no longer interest you, or why certain people no longer feel connected to your spirit, but heaven understands perfectly. God is not pushing you away from the world. He's pulling you into your calling. And what feels like heaviness is actually the hand of God preparing the ground beneath your feet for something greater. If you are feeling this invisible weight, it is a sign that your spirit is being consecrated, not for what you were, but for what you are about to become. If this resonates with what you have been feeling, share your experience in the comments. Your words may help someone else recognize the same weight that is guiding them into their own transformation. As the invisible weight settles deeper into your life, something else begins to stir within you, something that feels like a subtle but persistent unrest. It does not come from anxiety, though it may unsettle your peace. It does not come from fear, though it pushes you into introspection. This unrest rises from a place far beneath the surface, signaling that your spirit is outgrowing the space it has been living in. When God prepares to transform someone, He rarely begins with external changes. He starts by unsettling the inner world, gently loosening your attachment to routines, relationships, and mindsets that cannot accompany you into the next season. What you are feeling is not instability. It is transition. It is the tension that forms right before growth becomes visible. This inner uneasiness often shows up at unexpected moments. You may sense it when you are alone, as if a quiet voice inside you is urging you to re-examine the direction of your life. You may feel it in conversations that once felt harmless, but now leave your spirit unsettled. Even your thoughts begin to shift, drawn toward questions of purpose, identity, calling, and alignment. At times, you may feel caught between who you were and who you know you are becoming, unable to return to the old, yet not fully formed into the new. This space can feel confusing, but it is holy ground. It is where God reshapes your desires, rearranges your priorities, and removes the illusion that your life can continue unchanged. The unrest is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that something is awakening within you. As this inner tension grows, so does your awareness that you cannot remain stagnant. You feel pulled toward deeper conversations, deeper truths, deeper intimacy with God. Surface-level living no longer satisfies you. Shallow commitments no longer appeal to you. Your spirit begins craving clarity, direction, and authenticity. And though you may not yet see the full transformation unfolding, your heart knows it is coming. This unrest is the spiritual equivalent of the ground trembling before a shift, the whisper before revelation, the pressure before release. God is preparing you from the inside out, removing whatever numbed your spirit and strengthening what aligns with your purpose. And while you may not fully understand it yet, this inner uneasiness is the clearest indication that a divine turning point is drawing near, guiding you quietly into the next stage of your anointing. As the inner unrest continues to stir your spirit, a deeper and more defining shift begins to take place. God starts rearranging your affections and priorities in ways you could never have initiated on your own. What once held the center of your attention slowly moves to the edges, and what you once considered secondary begins rising to the forefront with surprising clarity. This is one of the most unmistakable signs of divine anointing, the reordering of what your heart values. It happens quietly, often without your permission, because it is not driven by emotion but by alignment. God begins showing you what truly matters, what truly nourishes your spirit, and what truly contributes to the purpose He is shaping within you. This rearrangement can feel disorienting at first. You may notice that your desire for certain relationships fades, not out of bitterness, but because your spirit no longer connects with what once felt essential. The ambitions you used to chase begin to lose their urgency. The habits that once distracted you now feel meaningless. Even your conversations change because your heart is no longer satisfied with what is shallow, temporary, or empty. You start gravitating toward what strengthens you spiritually, what awakens your discernment, and what pulls you closer to God. This is not a loss of identity, it is the unveiling of your real one. When God anoints a person, He does not simply call them to a mission, He reshapes their inner world so they can sustain the mission once it begins. And as your priorities shift, you begin sensing a new internal order forming. You feel drawn to peace more than stimulation, wisdom more than approval, purpose more than pleasure. You start protecting your energy, choosing your influences carefully, and recognizing that not everything deserves access to your heart. This refinement is part of a larger divine process that prepares you to hold the weight of the calling being placed upon you. God is not just rearranging what you love. He is teaching you to love differently. He is redirecting your focus, anchoring your emotions, strengthening your convictions, and whispering to your spirit that the direction of your life is changing in ways that only make sense when viewed from heaven's perspective. And even if you cannot yet see the full picture, this inner restructuring is the quiet foundation of a transformation that is already unfolding and will soon become unmistakable. As God continues His work within you, you may notice a breaking inside that cannot be ignored. This is not the breaking of weakness, but the breaking of preparation. It is a quiet dismantling of old structures within your spirit, a subtle unfastening of attachments, habits, and beliefs that once defined your life but are no longer aligned with the purpose God is cultivating. You may feel moments of tension, discomfort, or even sorrow as the familiar gives way to the necessary. It is as if God is quietly separating the ordinary from the extraordinary, pulling you away from the patterns that once distracted you and guiding you toward the calling that requires a stronger, more focused, and more receptive heart. This internal breaking is often misunderstood. It is not punishment, and it is not failure. It is the unmistakable signal that God is preparing you for a level of impact, clarity, and alignment that the old self could not carry. You may feel a deep longing for what you have lost, or a subtle resistance to what is coming, but these sensations are part of the refining process. Your heart begins to recognize that some attachments, no matter how cherished, cannot travel with you into the next season. People, circumstances, and even dreams that once seemed permanent now feel distant or unimportant. This does not mean you are losing your way. It means your way is being prepared with divine precision. God is pruning your inner life so that when the time comes to step into His plan, your heart, mind, and spirit are ready to sustain the weight of His purpose. As this breaking continues, you may notice that your discernment sharpens. Your eyes see through illusion more clearly, your spirit detects authenticity faster, and your capacity to embrace God's direction expands. You begin to understand that this internal dismantling is not something to fear, but something to honor, because it is directly connected to your anointing. The emptiness that feels uncomfortable is, in reality, a sacred space where God can fill you with his presence, vision, and strength. And even though it is challenging, this process prepares you to carry what you could never carry before, to understand truths you could not grasp before, and to step fully into the calling that has been reserved for you. If this resonates with what you're experiencing, take a moment to leave a comment sharing your journey. Your insights could help someone else recognize the breaking in their own heart and understand that it is a sign of God's preparation rather than a setback. As the internal breaking continues, you may start to notice another profound work unfolding within your spirit. God begins the process of emptying you, not to diminish your value or your strength, but to create space for something far greater. This emptying is subtle yet undeniable, a deliberate removal of everything that occupies the center of your heart without serving the purpose he has ordained for you. Your passions, desires, routines, and attachments that once seemed essential start to fade, making room for clarity, focus, and divine direction. It may feel unsettling, even lonely, but this emptiness is sacred. It is the soil in which your next anointing will take root, the preparation for a fullness that only God can provide. During this season, you may find that certain comforts no longer satisfy you. The activities, achievements, and relationships that once energized you may feel hollow or distant. Even your own ambitions may require re-evaluation as your heart becomes increasingly sensitive to what truly matters. This is not a random process of deprivation. It is a purposeful clearing of space so that your priorities align with the calling God has placed on your life. By removing the clutter of distraction, God enables you to hear his voice more clearly, discern his plans more accurately, and receive the anointing he is preparing without interference. What feels like emptiness is, in fact, a form of divine preparation. As you experience this emptying, you may notice a paradoxical peace emerging alongside discomfort. Your spirit begins to trust the unseen process, even when the reasons for the removal remain unclear. You begin to sense that God is orchestrating every detail, aligning circumstances, and guiding the flow of your life with precision. The old dependencies, attachments, and distractions are being replaced with a renewed capacity for spiritual insight, resilience, and purpose-driven action. You are being positioned to receive the fullness of what God intends, not gradually, but in the timing he knows is perfect. And even as this emptying unfolds, your heart learns to rest in the assurance that the void is temporary, that it is a prelude to expansion, and that the new life God is cultivating within you will surpass anything the old could provide. This is the quiet but powerful way God prepares you for the next level of your anointing, shaping a heart capable of carrying his purpose fully and without compromise. As the process of breaking, rearranging, and emptying unfolds, subtle yet unmistakable signs begin to manifest within your heart and spirit. These signs are not always dramatic or loud, but they carry a weight and clarity that cannot be ignored. You may notice an increasing awareness of your own thoughts and emotions, a sensitivity to your surroundings, and a deeper perception of the spiritual currents around you. Ordinary situations begin to feel charged with meaning. Conversations resonate differently. Places that once felt neutral now carry energy, guidance, or caution. These shifts are not coincidences. They are the gentle fingerprints of God's anointing touching you, preparing you to perceive and operate in a higher level of purpose. You may also experience emotional recalibration. Feelings that once dictated your choices may begin to feel foreign or less compelling. Joy may arise from simplicity rather than spectacle. Peace may feel more significant than pleasure. Even discomfort becomes instructive, guiding you away from paths that would compromise your calling. Your spirit begins to respond to cues that others overlook. A pause in conversation, a moment of silence, a subtle shift in tone or atmosphere. These are all markers of spiritual sensitivity and indicators that your inner life is aligning with the anointing God is placing upon you. You may feel drawn towards solitude, prayer, or study, recognizing that these practices heighten your discernment and fortify your readiness for what lies ahead. Simultaneously, you might notice an internal calibration of priorities. Decisions that once felt urgent now require contemplation. Relationships, opportunities, and responsibilities are filtered through an emerging spiritual awareness that discerns alignment versus distraction. Your heart begins to detect authenticity, intention, and purpose in ways that were previously unavailable to you. Even subtle misalignments, which may have gone unnoticed in the past, now register as signals to step back or redirect your energy. These shifts, though often invisible to the outside world, are unmistakable within. They are not signs of instability, but of attunement, a spiritual tuning that God is initiating to prepare you for the fullness of His purpose. Every moment of clarity, every nudge of conviction, every subtle emotional adjustment is a signal that your heart is being equipped to carry the weight, responsibility, and vision of the anointing that is already at work within you. These signs are the gentle yet profound ways God prepares your spirit to move in alignment with His will. As all the prior shifts within your heart and spirit converge, you begin to recognize that the path you are walking is not accidental. Every change in desire, every moment of unrest, every subtle realignment of priorities and attachments has been orchestrated by God to position you for a level of purpose and anointing that transcends what you have known. This silent passage is not marked by applause or acknowledgement from the world. It is invisible, yet it is profound. You may not see the steps ahead clearly, but you feel a steady guidance, a gentle confirmation in your spirit, and an inner certainty that each internal adjustment, every detachment, and every moment of waiting has been necessary to prepare you for the calling that God has reserved. The fullness of your anointing cannot be rushed, and the waiting, refining, and preparation you have experienced are all part of the divine timetable that ensures you are ready to carry what others cannot. As this transformation solidifies, you begin to operate from a new level of clarity and authority. Your discernment is sharper, your priorities are aligned with heaven's agenda, and your heart carries a peace that surpasses understanding. You can feel the subtle weight of God's presence in decisions, relationships, and actions. The old self no longer directs your choices. The refined, anointed heart guides your steps. This is the culmination of the changes that started quietly and invisibly. Your heart has been prepared to receive and manifest the purpose God has placed within you. And as you move forward, this alignment ensures that your impact is not just personal, but extends into the lives of those around you, amplifying influence, inspiration, and blessing in ways that were previously unimaginable. If you have followed this journey with your heart open, I encourage you to take a moment now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, leave a comment letting me know this message was for me, and give this video a like to mark the awareness you have received. These steps help you anchor what you've just experienced and continue walking in the alignment God has orchestrated. And before you go, there is another video waiting for you that will expand on this journey, complementing the steps you've just discovered. Click over and continue this path of understanding and anointing. Trust that as you do, God's timing will continue to unfold. Every shift, every moment of preparation, every transformation is for a purpose greater than you can yet imagine.